G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War update for the 11th of December 2025. The war continues, of course, and despite the peace talks, we are at a impasse because Zelensky will not give Russia anything, not land and not even a guarantee on anything. All Zelensky does is ask for Russia to be pushed out of Ukraine, to be given lots of money to rebuild Ukraine, and wants instant NATO membership for Ukraine. There is nothing short of insanity right now, where the loser of a war is demanding we pull his nuts out of the fire and risk nuclear Armageddon so he can stay in his job. This is nothing but a third world dictatorship that harkens from the 1970s. This is the politics of backing black hats because they opposed communism. And of course the Democrats are stuck in that Russia narrative. It is beyond idiocracy. There's plenty of reasons not to like Russia. Banning certain animes, absolutely number one on my list for not liking Russia. But there are reasons not to go to war with Russia. One of them is, I think 9,000 nuclear weapons is a very good reason. But Ukraine just does not get the memo. And they were rocked by violent explosions in Kiev, but somehow and other parts of Ukraine today. Now, Kiev did hit, allegedly, Sevastopol and allegedly tried to attack they're claiming it was a tanker, but they allegedly attacked a oil tanker. Again, oil bad, got to save the environment at any cost. War, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. The absolute insanity of the situation. But here we have it. Russia's once again fighting in the buffer zone at Sumy. Pretty much the buffer zones in the north are fighting every day. But gains are very minimal, if any. Right now, if any, is the response. We don't really think there's been much gains in Kupiansk. But they're still fighting north and south, north of and south of Lyman, though it's claimed the Russians have captured Lyman. Even the Ukraine, but they're still fighting in other areas, and the map hasn't updated. But the Russians the Russians did advance in Silvesk and taken half the town. The Ukrainians were flanked at Valivizkia, but they're still fighting. Still fighting here at Orkho-Vanesk. Fighting has resumed did die down, but then later resumed in Kosk. Again, the weather near freezing. There's been slow movement. But most of the day is below zero. Most of the weather in Ukraine is just cold. It's not really rain. It's more like there's just water in the air. It's misty. Lots of fog. Very bitter. Clings to your face. I've been in such weather. It's very unpleasant. Not really any change here in the north, but lots of fighting. However, there's huge change at Pavlovsk, where the Russians have taken additional territory, and Russian army has overrun Ukrainian positions north of Pavlovsk and south of Mariad. Russia's taken a huge chunk out of Ukraine. And I don't know if there's anywhere else. Oh yeah, they've taken more territory here as well. Not really much, but fighting in Hulapol continues. They shell the centre of town regularly, but Russian assault forces have begun probing attacks at north, south, and in the city. But of course, fighting has resumed in other areas as well. Russia can't really fight for long or maintain momentum in this weather, but they have used the weather to their advantage several times. And according to Ukrainian news, Russia did sneak 165,000 troops into Pavlovsk, but they said they're fighting them and killed 165. Not 165,000. See, that's the problem. See, they always try to trick you. But unfortunately, a lot of Ukrainian news is clickbait and disputed even by Western media. Even The Independent is disputing the Daily Mail reports. You know, there's a lot of... But Russia is shelling positions north. And of course they're shelling north. Right, they're in the south of Ukraine, shelling north. Why is that hard to believe? You know, but of course, now I think this was hit yesterday, but there were drone reports. Oh, sorry, there was another drone attack. Sorry, 4 hours ago. Yeah, Odessa was hit again. Now, listen to the carefully coded language. Key rallies, key allies. Voldemort. Key allies, right? Voldemort has called for his Death Eaters to come, put on the black, and rally around Zelensky. Because I'm the Zelensky. I'm the important one. Everybody has to come to me. Approximately 30 countries coming to kiss on my ring. I turn around and bend over for you, but that is against YouTube's terms of service. But Ukraine is mounting pressure from Russia on the battlefield, while diplomatic efforts from the United States to end this war. Zelensky is warning about China stepping up military-industrial cooperation. Wow, Zelensky can watch YouTube. Congratulations, Zelensky. You can repeat what other people have said. Congratulations, you're officially a muppet. You're a slop tuber, Zelensky. Actually, no, you're just slop for us YouTubers, Zelensky. The coalition of the willing, scrambling to steer peace talks to European governments, get it, that we want, that Russia's making maximalist demands. Really? Isn't that what you did to the Serbians? Isn't that what you did to the breakup of Yugoslavia? Isn't that what you did with Hungary and Poland and all these other countries wanting to join NATO? It's our way on the highway! Yaman! Now, of course, Zelensky says he will not give up territory. His constitution also forbids it. Also, the constitution forbids it. Yeah. Oh, the almighty constitution, everybody. So, in America, does that mean gun rights are law? You can't change it. It's absolute. Free speech is absolute, everybody. There can be no laws about speech. There can be no laws about guns. There can be... Nothing can't be done in America without a writ of habeas corpus from the courts. Due process, everybody. Really? Of course, that's what... You know, it's always... Again, as I constantly say, liberalism is a mental disease. They always argue what... They don't have morality. They argue a position. right? Whatever position gives them the most power, they argue that position. If the Constitution's in the way, it's an outdated document. It's a living document. It can be changed. If they want their way, they say, it is in the Constitution. It is the law of the land. You know, Mark Root and others who come over to America and say we can strike a deal, then go back to their little cesspools and then say, we backed Zelensky. You know, they're treating this as if this man walked on water. No, he played the piano with his penis, all right? There's a big freaking difference. It's like saying Jasmine Crockett is a holy woman because her initials are JC. Yeah, Ukraine is reporting a large mechanized presence. Now, this is weird because yesterday I said, isn't it weird there aren't that many big Russian artillery, Russian armor units? And then they report a huge mechanized assault for the Battle of Pavlovsk, and they show us a huge tank. In the new cope cage, which is steel mesh, but this is a Ukrainian tank called a guerrilla warfare system. There's an electronic warfare dome on the top. Yeah, it's a cope cage, right? Can't get in the tank until you got your warm blankie. Because my warm blankie will definitely protect you from monsters. Alright, so they're reporting a massive troop movement, 165,000. Again, cope. Okay? It's a city. Okay? The Battle of Kursk was big, and I think it involved 5,000 Russians, although over the years numbers get exaggerated in that, but the battle lines, right, are huge in Ukraine. You're not going to send tens of thousands into a small city, basically, because if Russia did, Ukraine could have wiped out 1/6 of the Russian army in Ukraine. There's no way, right? Ukraine wouldn't waste time. But again, these are British naval drones, so yeah, they would waste time, right? British and their cocky shows of, we gotcha, we gotcha, we gotcha, you know? That's what it is. It's so Keir Starmer can point his finger and say, we gotcha, ha ha ha. This is how childish they are, though. Like, Keir Starmer couldn't lick a postage stamp without permission, you know? That man is such a tool. You have no idea how corrupt the British Labour Party are because you don't want to know. Okay? If you just opened your eyes for a few seconds and read the headlines, and you would see every day. Trust me, the British Labour Party make the Democrats look clean. The Democrats have just got, you know, two hands in the cookie jar at all times, you know. Britain just doesn't have enough money to steal. That's all I'm saying. That's why they are a third-rate country. So is all of them are third-rate without the United States. Yet here they are pissing on your shoe and telling you it's rain. But Russia captured the city after months of fighting with small infantry groups. So they admit, right, that they lost to a handful of infantry groups, and now they're trying to claim that no, it was 165,000. They took all these Russians. It took a mountain of Russians to defeat one little Zelensky. This is the arrogance and ignorance. This is the narcissism. This is clickbait for the obtuse. But claiming that they took a massive army to defeat Pavlovsk. No. But Ukraine has lost territory. But there you go. Reported sea drone. See? Looks more like a drug smuggler boat to me, but yeah. Attacking an unarmed vessel. Congratulations, you're a pirate. You attacked an unarmed vessel. Oh, you're so stunning, so brave. And there we have Russians posing for photos in the Pavosk. Yeah. Ukrainians claims they're fending off. No, they lost. Okay? Al Jazeera, look at your own maps. Look at the Ukrainian maps. These are not Russian maps. These are Western maps showing loss after loss every day. This is all cope for the terminally political who don't want the truth. But the so-called coalition of the winnings around the French presidency. Vive le Napoleon! This time it'll be different. It'll be Napoleon and the mustache man going into Russia. This time we got them, everybody. This time it'll be different. Yeah. The last man to conquer Russia was the descendant of Genghis Khan. Okay? A nasty little upstart, Vladimir Lenin. And Vladimir Zelensky is not even Lenin's little sister. Okay? This guy is a piano player with a penis. Allegedly. He tinks with his pinky. Congratulations. You're president of Ukraine. Someone spent $1 billion to get this clown into office. My God. I would have done it for half the price. You overpaid. But you know why they put Zelensky in office, right? You know why. You know what the little hats did. You know that they're now in panic because they've only raised $15 billion for Ukraine. It takes $149 billion just to run the Ukrainian military right now. Though some say 147, 127. Russia's spending about 156 billion. Remember, Zelensky just told us, there's an alliance between China and Russia. Yeah, you read a history book from 1958, right? Yes. You saw a picture of Mao and Stalin, you know? Congratulations, Zelensky. You listened to your grandfather's stories. So he was a good commie, right? Fought for both sides. Fought for Ukraine, fought for Russia, fought for the Germans. Each time claiming to be a liberator. Yeah. Absolute peak liberalism. Fighting for everybody and claiming to be a good guy every time. Peak liberalism. Russia is recording multiple bogus news stories about Ukraine. Smile! Yeah. And in other news, water is wet, everybody. But the key story, Russian pranksters got a former US official to tell them the truth. And now, well, former US National Secretary Counselor Amanda Sloat has sat down to set the record straight and admitted everything. That she was uncomfortable with the idea of US pushing Ukraine into taking that path, other words, war. They knew there would be war if Kiev would not give up its bid to join NATO. That they wanted to be but there were those who didn't want to give Russia that power and say, no, you can't decide who's in NATO and who isn't. This was a calculated risk. But of course, one that she said would end in war. Ukraine declaration neutrality in 21 or early 22 would have prevented the destruction and loss of life. But again, she got tricked by Russian pranksters in an interview to tell the truth. And this is one of the reasons why there is this huge Russia narrative right now. Biden's ex-director, right? That authorities, basically, early weeks of hostilities, they had an agreement, but Boris Johnson's... Now, this is disputed by Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson's allegation is that Zelensky said, what if we fight? Boris Johnson said, we'll back you either way, which was a huge mistake, but that was his instructions. Boris Johnson does not get out of bed without permission, right? This is why Liz Truss was thrown out of office. She had this nasty idea that being elected meant that you were the one who made decisions. However, and we do not know how it works in Russia, but the goal to end the war always assumed that there'd be another one. This is the problem. Every war right now is leading to another one. Because at the end of the day, China is selling you goods with Temu, not transferring the money back to China, but instead buying arms in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Vietnam, and their own, right? That they are shipping because China is a slave state. China's printed more money in the last 4 years than China had in their reserves. In currency, China had 100 trillion yuan in the Chinese economy, and they printed another 100 trillion yuan. Why is the Chinese economy so sluggish? Because none of that money went to Chinese. They have tens of billions in euros sitting in warehouses. Money under guard, piles of it under guard, transferring, promising notes, transferring, and as companies collapse, the Chinese government just says, but they're not paying their bills, they're not paying their taxes, they make promises they can't keep or won't keep, and right now they are back to trying to extort more and more oil out of Russia and gas. So more and more Russian oil and gas for the promise of munitions. Putin has reacted by seizing some Chinese companies and warehouses. Unpaid taxes, unpaid wages. Common complaint in China. Common complaint around the world about Chinese. The world keeps moving to brink of war because Xi is playing chicken with the rest of the world. He sent his bomber fleet to fly over southern Japan. He is trying to scare the world into surrendering to China without shots fired. He wants to go down in history as the Sun Tzu of the modern era. That he wants to put everything, the thoughts of Xi Jinping into little red books around the world and have you study Xi Jinping forever, the man who defeated the world without shots fired. You can take my word for it or not, but he is trying to scare everybody into submission, whether it's climate change, whether it's the threat of nuclear war, the threat of Russia, the threat of an ice age, or the threat of economic collapse. Because one of the reasons why Europe is in such a mess, and the US and Australia, and many other countries is China doesn't pay its bills. So money is printed to fill that void. Now, many have called for Trump to be different. Now, start seizing Chinese farmland. Same with other countries. But they say, oh, but the risk of war. That's why she's doing it. Now, we know, right now, there has been no direct confrontation, but Iran has allegedly talked about attacking Israel and sending troops into Gaza on Chinese fishing vessels or something. I don't. Again, these are rumors, but there is talk, and you can hate, right? You can hate what Israel does and not hate Israel. You can hate Netanyahu and not hate Israel. But if you think that Gazans are innocent babes in the wood, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of the West, you colonizer. Right? There is no such thing as Gaza or Palestine. It's all made up. Okay? It's a province of Turkey. Most of those people are Egyptian. A lot of them are displaced. Sorry, not Egyptian. Displaced Syrians. Or Lebanese or Egyptians. There was only 1 million people in the Levant until 1948. When Israel was created, suddenly with 6 million Jews, what happened? Bunch of Turks and Egyptians and all these other, and Syrians all tried to invade Israel. They failed, and what did? They abandoned their armies in these camps. That's why there's so many young men, or so many young men. They were abandoned. They couldn't go home. They were disgraced, or mercenaries, or now over time, Russia has gone through several periods of regret, but right now they're back to supporting the Middle Eastern causes against the colonialist West, which is another reason why to hate Russia. You can't make peace if you keep funding our enemies, all right? It's another reason why Europe doesn't want to settle with Russia. If you do not understand the root causes of this conflict, you will never understand why there is a conflict. If you boil everything down to the lowest common denominator, you're a fucking moron. You can't handle complex situations. Now, the Russian forces have allegedly liberated Lyman. They've gone into the Lyman area, okay, and they are fighting. Though they Battle Group 7 have. This is again, they claim, but you watch. The Ukrainians will counterattack tomorrow. A Viking armoured personnel carry out 2 combat vehicles and 3 pickup trucks. It shows you how low intensity, right? You look at the losses in the Battle of Kursk in the 1940s, 3,000 tanks. I mean, this is very low intensity, right? Rockets, drones. All right, now, I was going to do a separate video on weapons making a difference in Ukraine. Most of them don't. HIMARS, not enough to make a difference. Mortars, hit-and-run attacks, good short-term. Long-term, the Russians just lay drones in wait. As soon as the proximity alert goes off, they send in a drone and blow up the pickup truck. Okay, Ukraine's losing pickup trucks every day. That's in hit-and-run attacks. They're losing artillery. This is why America is getting out of the business of towing artillery into place and setting it up. But you think they would have learned that already in World War II? The priest, mobile artillery, believe it or not, won World War II, not tanks. Mobile artillery, the dreaded 150 millimeter. I think it was only 150. although some say 155. But yeah, big artillery won World War II. Big artillery won Korea. Big artillery could have won Vietnam if they sent enough of it. But they sent what? How many battle masters did they send? 10 or something? Or some ridiculous number. The difference between Korea and Vietnam, in Vietnam, you read a lot of books and they tell you all these things they allegedly did. Then I've met people from Vietnam who were in that period, some of whom fought for both sides, some of them spied on America, some of them fought for the North openly. Right, my ex-wife's family were South Vietnamese, but some fought for the North, some spied on America, some fought for both sides. Some started in one of her neighbours was a former South Vietnamese officer who lost his sight in a grenade incident. The French grenade, instead of exploding, when he pulled the pin, the ignition fuse went off straight away and blinded him. That was sabotaged by French socialists. He should have been just taken out and shot. But France and socialism, no, it's freedom of speech to undermine French war effort. You know, this fucking liberal democracy and its fucking hypocrisy. So you have Mark Kelly talking about disobeying illegal orders and all these other things, and then talking about traitors to the Republic. You know, they're all hypocrites. They don't have morality. They don't. None of them have any morality. Mark Kelly, are these illegal orders in the room with us right now? You know, Zelensky, is the Putin under your bed? He's acting like the Putin is going to steamroll to Paris. Moscow doesn't have, right? Moscow only steamrolled to Berlin because they had 160,000 ships a year from the United States coming across northern Scotland, northern Sweden, and to Vladivostok, and also the men and machines that came up through mostly Turks, but the men and machines from Syrians, Turks, Arabs, anybody from the Middle East Americans could find in America, Canada, and Mexico, sent them to Iran to basically hired Iranians as well, and Turkmeds to skirt the Iranian border, come up under the guise of being up through Azerbaijan, and coming up here into Stalingrad to fight the Germans across through to Donetsk, Crimea, up to Kursk, up through into Poland. And by the time they reached Germany, they'd absorbed several thousand recruits many times over. Most never made it to Berlin. Most are recruits who were from the Russian army from 1939 to 1945 did not survive the war. I think it was 3 in 4 Russian conscripts died. And did you know it wasn't death by German? It was death by dysentery. The food was rotten. The winter was so terrible. Death by dysentery, death by frost. This may be the worst winter since 1922, but it is only just at freezing. Could you imagine how many would be dying right now if it was well below zero and they were still trying to fight on? So cold, they used cigarette lighters to warm up their grenades before they throw them. You know how risky that is. You know, literally cooking off. Okay, the truth about Russian tanks. Yeah, they may have sent 10,000 tanks into Germany, but only 3,000 made it to Berlin. most tankers who were killed weren't killed were killed when the engine fire set fire to the tank. Boom, cook off. Right, you're cooked because you're jumping out of the tank. Right, you're inside the tank. You're pretty much down to your skivvies, sweating like a pig in 50 plus degrees temperatures. But you get outside and it's suddenly sub-zero. The shock killed them. So perhaps all these people who are salivating over war know nothing about war, never been in it, and they most likely protested against it or politely declined, claiming it was their human right. And now they want to glaze war and send you to it so they can be comfortable, because they have this misguided belief that killing off the peasants will give them more resources, will reduce the tax burden. Well, if that's the case, then why are you glazing for illegals? Oh, of course, cheap labour! You want your maids, you want your gardeners, you want your manicurist. Liberal, thy name is evil. And those who salivate for war have no morality whatsoever. Whoops. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Thank you to everybody who has. And of course, thank you to everybody who's bought my book. So, how about checking out my merch? All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Please and thank you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.